So it's fall and it's October, and you know what that means? Lions football. How about our sports teams? The Lions, and how about the Tigers this fall? Yep. Can you just feel the positive energy in the air as the Detroit sports teams have become winners? Or maybe you're not a sports fan, but consider the energy you feel attending a concert of a favorite band or hearing a speech by an admired leader. Have you ever stood in line for hours for some event? We all, at some time, have experienced the thrill of being swept up by the energy of a successful team, whether our high school debate team or the U.S. women's national soccer team, or a band, a show, an author, a leader, a group. We have all seen it, and we have all at some time been caught up in the delightful frenzy of chanting, "We're number one, we're number one." So while our initial reaction to today's gospel is an eye roll and a cringe at the audacity of James and John, we have the perspective of being outside watching the story, and we know how it ends. Let's change our view and put ourselves in the story. First, the disciples had already walked away from the lives they knew, the lives they had expected to live, to follow who at that time was an unknown Jesus. They have stepped away from their homes, from their families, and their friends to wander, on foot, not a tour bus, from strange town to strange town, following this man. And as the days went on, the crowds grew, and the miracles occurred. Imagine being part of the excitement of the growing crowds, witnessing the blind and the deaf being healed, the dead raised, demons tossed out. Probably more exciting than seeing Kerry Carpenter, with 2 out in the 9th inning, hit a 3-run homer to win the second game of the ALDS playoff. More excitement than people streaming to downtown Detroit and local sports bars, believing the Tigers would win the next game and the next game and go on to the World Series. Who would go to all that trouble if they thought Detroit was going to lose? And while we did not make it all the way to the World Series this year, just wait until next year. So just imagine how involved and excited the disciples must have been, not just spectators, but a part of this Jesus event, and how they didn't really hear what he'd been trying to tell them about the crucifixion. Can't you just feel the impulsive energy of James and John shouting, pick me," as members of the Jesus team? Something about us humans. We just love success. We have our movie stars and our champion athletes and our business tycoons. If we can't be that star athlete, we can wear their jersey, drink their sports drink, or visit Applebee's. 2,000 years ago, Jesus understood that. You know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. This isn't just about kings and presidents, but our athletes telling us what insurance we should buy or submarine sandwich we should eat. Celebrity spokespersons pushing what automobile we should drive or sports book we should use. Our advertisers pushing what we should wear or how we should vacation. Advertisers have even become celebrities of their own. We all know Jake from State Farm. There are many different ways in which we can be ruled. Jesus shows us a different way. In today's lesson, admonishing the disciples, "But it is not so among you, but whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave of all." Repeating what we heard a few weeks ago in another reading from Mark, whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all. Jesus, our faith, our church, tells us that we are members of his team, not by wearing his jersey, although I love my Episcopalian apron, or even singing the fight song, although our music inspires and enables our prayer, but by being a servant. Trinity is a church of servants. During the time I spent at Trinity last year while Julie was on sabbatical, and the time I spent in the office this year filling in as parish administrator, I've been fortunate enough to witness many of the servants of Trinity. We have faithful groundskeepers who plant and tend our yard. regularly mow and weed, and engage needed pest control and lumberjacks. We have caretakers of our building who repair what needs fixing, perform due diligence and get estimates and hire professionals when needed, stock our kitchen, clean up after the mice and the occasional snake, which we had this week, and when needed, clean up after people. We have vestry members, a secretary, and a treasurer taking care of business. We serve each other in worship with Altar Guild laying our altar, ushers welcoming us, readers sharing the word, chalice bearers sharing the wine, musicians motivating our worship, an AV team managing our technology, tellers tending our giving, and of course, feasting and fellowship of our coffee hours and potlucks. Our pastoral care team reaches out with cards and phone calls and visits with those who cannot join us. We share companionship through cookie exchanges, Mardi Gras, cider making, Holy Week activities, painting classes, stitchers, books club, Bible study, and Compline. Together, we create a community that serves the community. We share our building with Al-Anon and Alcoholics Anonymous, the Farmington Area Interfaith Association, Tai Chi classes, CPR classes, and the Artists of Thistle Rose. We provide needed supplies to Neighborhood House, the Foster Closet, and Beachview School. We furnish families in need with holiday celebrations of Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. We support the developing mission at the Church of Crossroads. Our church is a community. Recently, an October 5th New York Times article about something called the American Time Use Study described that time spent at home increased by 1 hour and 39 minutes a day, or 10%, over a 20-year span starting from 2003. While the pandemic drove a sharp increase in this, the trend started many years before. I know I was working from home several days a week before the pandemic even began and disrupted many of our previous routines. Advances in technology have made it easier for families to juggle work and home, or for people to access therapy or medical care or entertainment. However, the New York Times article describes, as of 2022, time that Americans once spent outside the home participating in activities like education, eating, and drinking had to some extent moved into the home. The largest shift occurred with religious activities. 59% occurred at the home only 59% occurred in the home in 2022, and down to 24% all right, I wrote the sentence wrong. I know it is. 59% occurred in the home prior to 2022, or prior to 2003, and now as of 2022, only 24% occur in the home. It's a trend that political scientist Robert D. Putnam examined in his influential 2000 book, Bowling Alone, The Collapse and Revival of American Community, which said Americans had traded their social institutions, churches, social clubs, and yes, bowling leagues, for social isolation, with adverse consequences for society. Towards the end, the article summarizes, while loneliness isn't the same as being alone, time spent at home in the US has been rising in parallel with social isolation and loneliness. We're not trading dining at restaurants for hosting people for dinner. We're simply eating more at home alone. Last year, I shared these words that were written by the Reverend Eric Parker under his blog, The Millennial Pastor, and I'm reminded of them again once I read the New York Times article. Even as our society shifts away from communities like church being central in the way we live our day-to-day lives, the answer isn't for churches to slowly fade away. Rather, congregations and faith communities are more needed than ever. Churches are needed to offer a counterexample, to be an alternative vision of what life could be in the 21st century, to be people and communities gathered together by the grace and mercy of God, who loves us freely and ferociously, to hear stories that give our lives meaning, grounded in the promise of resurrection and new life, to keep being what Jesus called us to be from the very beginning, God's beloved people, the body of Christ. Our Trinity community presents a stewardship emphasis every October. I hope you don't see this as just part of our regular routine, like maybe dentist appointments, or just a gimmick to drum up pledges. If it was, I doubt I would still be putting my time and energy into this. Our annual stewardship focus, breaking out of our Sunday to Sunday routine, noticing the abundance God has given us and in our community, being grateful and thankful for what we have, and being thoughtful and prayerful about our response, our ongoing commitment to the community, is a spiritual exercise that deserves intentional time each year. This year, as part of this exercise, we'll be conducting a mutual ministry review in the community room after the service. It's a chance to recognize and celebrate what we do well and should keep doing, and identify what we may start or stop doing so we can continue to effectively meet the needs of our members and our community. Our community needs regular, intentional, committed donations of time, talent, and treasure so we can make the most of all that we have been given. Later this week, you'll receive in the mail your estimate of giving card and information on ways you can share your time and talent. These materials will also be available at the back of the church, and they're on our website under the stewardship menu. Sunday, November 10th, will be our In-Gathering Sunday when we present gifts of support for the coming year and bless those gifts. If you're ever in doubt about the impact of your giving, look about you. Every person you see is part of the story of your giving. Our support given generously is what enables our community and our ministry. I hope you thoughtfully, prayerfully, and with an enthusiastic pick me, consider how you can grow your giving for Trinity so we can continue to support and grow our community. Thank you.